Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world. It's kind of at 9:30 in Malaysia, where I am right now, and to some of us in Malaysia as well. And I believe Arman, are you in Melbourne, if I'm not
I'm in Melbourne now, yes.
Yes, yes. And I think it's kind of early morning over there. It's like past midnight. Am I right?
Just after midnight, yes,
Yes.
12:30 a.m.
Good morning to you then. And
Thank
Yugen, where
you.
are you actually right now?
I'm in Germany and it's 2:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, right. So not too bad.
Oh,
So as long as Armin, I don't put Armin to sleep, it's all right.
all good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome everybody to this Global Empowerment Summit, the third Global Empowerment Summit. And we have a very august panel of a group of people who are amazing in what they are doing around the world. And we are so privileged to listen to them. And let me give you some short introductions. And let me warn you, the credentials behind them is actually very long. And I try to shorten it as much as I can. I'll start with Aman, who I have had the pleasure of listening to last year as well. Now, Dr. Aman Rashid, born in Malaysia, Melbourne-based political analyst come mental health researcher, is the former director of research and advocacy, so as well as Health Thrive Well, a leading community mental health center and project manager of Buddy Bear, Malaysia's only child-dedicated helpline during the pandemic. That's incredible. It's the first I'm hearing of this, Aman. It sounds so nice. And he has worked and consulted for the US State Department, the Canadian Foreign Affairs and International Trade, World Bank, and Monash Asia Institute. And he writes on mental issues for the Star in Malaysia from time to time. Then we have Jeff Chiar, who is the executive coach and facilitated 30 years in IT software business and 10 years in leadership development, served in ICF Malaysia chapter for 6 years as vice president. And in case those of you don't know what ICF is, it's the International Coaching Federation, which is quite popular amongst us coaches. He's currently serving as trustee in the foundation. The foundation's mission is accelerating and amplifying social system change through coaching. And it's a non-membership body established as a 501 tax-exempt education and research-oriented legal entity of the International Coaching Federation ecosystem. And it believes in fostering the coaching's role as an integral part of a thriving society. We have someone who is quite new to our Global Empowerment Hub now, and we're glad to have him. Alan Fung, is that right? Am I pronouncing your name right?
That's
Alan?
okay.
That's
all right.
It's okay. I hope it's correct. And Alan has a lot of experience as a speaker. This is something that's pretty interesting. He's the head of digital Damansara Holdings Berhad. He's an independent director of Inity Corp and IFCA MSc Berhad. He currently he's also a coach and mentor on MDEC, Cradle and Magic platforms. He's a seasoned, versatile, and passionate tech and ICT professional, coach and mentor, and board member with strong business acumen and proven track record in achieving commercial objectives. One interesting fact is he has the proven ability to leverage on media, including social media, for effective publicity. And he has appeared on local TV and radio stations as a speaker and also in conferences and seminars, which I'm sure many of all the other panelists has as well. And last but not least is someone perhaps some of you have been listening to before this, and that is Yugen Bubeck. And Yugen is a global project leader. He's an experienced global project leader with a demonstrated history of working in the human pharmaceuticals and animal health industry. He has a strong program in project management professional. He is a strong program and project management professional skilled in anti-parasitic drugs for pets and nutraceuticals for pets, horses, and dairy cattle, as well as in human pharmaceuticals in all necessary aspects. And one thing interesting is if you have already heard his interview with Andrea, I think you spoke about compassionate leadership. Yugen?
Yeah. So that
Yes.
that was the session we just had before this panel.
Exactly. And I'm sorry I missed that. I'm hoping to catch up on it later. So welcome to all the panelists. We are so honored to have all of you here. We're just going to have a conversation that will probably be touching on some of the aspects of the future of leadership in your respective fields. I would like to start with Aman. Yes, Aman, now a political analyst and now also an advocate of mental health. So Aman, what I am hearing now is that corporates or business leaders are realizing that mental health issues is not something that is just it's just pertaining to certain part of the world that doesn't affect the corporate sector. In fact, mental health issues is also there, very much so, in society, in the professional as well as the personal workspace. And they are realizing that they cannot sweep it under the rug anymore. And it's it's important to realize that the needs of the employee, not just physical or emotional, but mental as well, needs to be addressed for them to be more productive. So I would like to hear your views and your experiences on this topic of mental health, leadership in the mental health issues, and how leaders should consider taking this forward. Aman.
Emin, you are on mute, I guess.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry for a little bit of technical issue there, but thanks for highlighting that and bringing me back to the room again. Look, really good point, Sham, there that there's growing awareness now that we have in the corporates and among business leaders, right, about the importance of mental health in the workplace. Then, look, this may seem like, common sense, right? A happy employee is a productive employee, but unfortunately, it took us the pandemic to really wake up to that call. The workplace was still seen in a very patron-client way. I hire you, you work for me, I pay you. But I think there's growing recognition now, right? And as we move to the fourth industrial revolution, increasingly we'll see that the workplace is also changing. And part of the change is that you will see employees having multiple employees, for example, right? And that whole standard format we had of one job, one boss, one organization, I think that's going to change, right? So in this landscape, right, in this very fast-changing landscape, businesses are realizing that to attract employees, you have to do more than just provide a pay or provide a salary or provide a remuneration or compensation. Beyond compensation, right, the well-being is important. And the reality is today when employees look for a job, they do look at, okay, is this job going to give me the work-life balance I need? Or the work-life integration we talk about. Is this organization known to be employee-friendly, right? What are the mental health protection or support that this company provides from the reputation that we know? So in other words, if you're a business leader now, you cannot look at mental health only in a reactive way, because before this we looked at it in a reactive way. Don't get me wrong, that's also important. Like for example, the importance of having service like the employee assistance program. If somebody in your workforce is going through anxiety, stress, or depression, they do need that support. They do need that professional help. And it is important for a company to provide that. But we are now talking about something much beyond that. That's reactive. We're also talking about prevention. And I think with prevention, we're talking about really creating systems, processes, and work cultures, right, which are conducive to mental health. What do we mean by this? This means that the entire human resource planning that we have has to take into account mental health and the well-being of employees. And there is actually a business case for this. And we can talk about that more in this section. I don't want to hog on it, but I want to make a point here that business leaders are gradually seeing and recognizing that investment in mental health is not really a cost, but it's actually investment that can have a return there as well. And like I said, a happy employee gives a productive employee. But a wake-up call was the pandemic. And if you look at the some of the modeling that has been done internationally, it shows, right, that actually an investment of a dollar in a company in mental health can lead to returns of about $2.30, and this is a global average, right? But there is a strong business case to say that, if as an employer you're more mental health friendly, you're actually not only doing a service to your employees, but you're also doing a service to your organization as a whole. So I'll just put in one line. Employee well-being and organizational well-being are interrelated, and business leaders need to recognize that and make the investment there and walk the talk, right? So I think the conversations are taking place, but we need the investment to take place. Thank you.
Thank you, Aman. So we need the investment. The business leaders need to understand that in many ways, prevention is better than cure, and it's an investment. I get that. And speaking on that trend, Jeff, you are an executive coach. You have been an executive coach, and I understand that a lot of companies are realizing, in fact, a lot of potential employees actually request that executive coaching be part of the package before they actually join a company. So would you say that executive coaching, as in your experience, what has it been, and what do you see if the future of leadership addressing this issue, which also complements what Aman has just said about it being an investment? So Jeff?
Yes, thank you, Aman. I think it's very timely. I just did sort of like teachable materials on mental health, and this was actually because I'm going to be appointed a coach for Modern Health. Modern Health is an organization that is hiring coaches to address mental health issues. Yeah, so they want me to go through that material. So and before I answer your question, Sham, I think there are some interesting statistics that I wanted to share. So some of the statistics was really, let me just quickly open up something that I can share. Hang on a second, yeah. From my side, okay, and there were some statistics that says that mental health in the workplace, and I think this is interesting because this is the latest from this organization that did research as well. 88% of professionals consider the mental health policies of a potential employer important when looking for a new role. Okay, 79% of employees would like management to make it clear that mental health is a priority. 42% of prospective employees look for mental well-being strategies on employer review sites before joining companies. And this is a big one. 97% of employees believe that employees have a responsibility to support the mental well-being of their staff. Interesting, isn't it?
That's amazing. That's here.
So leading to your question, I would like to say that as far as coaching awareness is concerned, more and more, partly because ICF have done a lot of work, and also there is more awareness of coaching. More and more people are looking into coaching. But still, when it comes to mental health, I have some coaches who are also counselors, right? And I have some friends who are full-time counselors. They are very busy, okay? They are very busy now because they have been hired by organizations who went into corporate, and they are the corporate actually are seeking organization because they go through organization. That means it's a big project. So corporates are seeking organizations which are involved in mental health, and the mental health organization need to hire coaches and counselors. Yeah, so it would be like coaches with perhaps who have do live coaching, right? Who have some background on this area, or they are also counselors. I think this is what I can say, yeah, for the moment.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you. And the statistics that you just shared is impressive, and it shows the need of the hour for business leaders, as Aman put it, to actually address this issue and provide investment and time. Not just manpower and money, but actually time to prevent and possibly support in any organization, mental health issues, because as you say, as Aman said, put it well, a happy employee is a productive employee. Now, I'd like to go to Yugen. You just spoke about compassionate leadership. And in your opinion, what has been the past, in the recent past, what has been the difference compared to what's happening that you see in your line of work or in your sphere of influence?
I'm come back to you in a second, but I would really love just to shortly give some insights to Arman and Jeff's thoughts so far. So one of the things, we all seen, and Arman has mentioned that correctly, I think the corona pandemic has changed a lot of things in our perceptions, yeah? And just, thinking of when we hear impressive numbers, one of the most impressive numbers in Germany and in Europe is that psychotherapeutic people and psychologists are fully booked out. If you need an appointment, you have to wait 6 to 12 months on average in Germany at the moment to get a first consultation. Yeah. The other thing which I still see, and I don't see that we have solved it, and I just listen to the word. And for me, also wording could be quite important. I never talk about mental health. I don't like this topic. I talk about emotional well-being. I want to give it a positive connotation because still mental health issues are stigmatized in our society. And it's in the workplace the same as in private. If we want leaders to understand what it's all about and to make them compassionate and caring, we need to understand these people are not sick. Yeah, they need help. Yeah, but that is not about, and it's as Jeff just read the numbers, it's prevention. It's not so much, of course, we have a lot of patients, but what we are looking more for, I guess, is prevention. We don't want these people even come into this situation. So, and then back to your question, compassionate and caring, I guess, a major change, at least in Germany, I observe was when you move from a real face-to-face world all of a sudden into a completely virtual world. And how do you handle that? And of course, we know we have introvert people, we have extroverted people, we have the combination of everything in them. And some people are more open and so on. But what I see, at least in my company, what we did is we took the advantage of the virtuality also, to introduce, for example, we have a company-wide app which will now be introduced where people anonymously, can report to our health caretakers and to the physicians if they have any feeling of they need help. Yeah, it's anonymous and the first contact is there. Because that is one of the things what I see still, and maybe Arman and Jeff can confirm. Alan has not talked so far, I don't know, but I guess maybe he has the same opinion. But still, the anonymity, that you can stay anonymous is still important for many, at least in the first contact. They don't want to feel stigmatized as being sick. So that is so and we also have some special trainings for leaders and starting already on a very low level. Every year it's even a must. You have to be there and participate from professionals, how you early on can realize, whether someone has a challenge and may need help and how you approach these people. The company is constantly offering, at least in the work council sessions, what they offer for people to help. And I think we do a great job. So if I see at least, the statistics about sick days in our company and people openly address what it is, still we manage to have a not so high level on emotional well-being topics. So and just the last sentence to your question, I guess what has really changed is that younger people, let's say the generation Z and X and so, are more open to talk about it than our generation. So we were told, keep it to yourself. It's don't talk to anyone. You may be stigmatized. You will not get a promotion. You are mentally sick. So just don't talk about it. That has changed because young people have a different, as Aman already mentioned also, idea of what they call work-life balance than we have. And lastly, I'm with my company. I just celebrated my 25th anniversary. That will not be the case, the normal anymore. People will change after 2-3 years, look where they find a better balance and where they may find more. And also, I believe that salary is, for the new generation at least, not the key driver. It's important still, but it's no longer the key driver.
Yes, thank you, Jürgen. I like the point that you make, that it's also the words that we use, because all of us come from different cultural backgrounds and cultural perceptions, and of course the stigma that's attributed to the word mental health issues is something that's still prevalent or widely around, and emotional well-being being perhaps a transitional way of leaders expressing themselves to their employees in a better way of making them more open to accepting help or support, or even for prevention. And that's an interesting point about how we word things and how we actually look. I think it's specific to each. There's no generic way of actually addressing or a particular leader in a particular, shall I say, corporate group or business. It would depend on the individual leader and his employees wherever he is or he or she is. I would like Aman and Jeff to also comment about what Jürgen has said before this. But before that, I'd like to go to Alan. Now, Alan, you are in the digital and IT space. And what I maybe as a layperson understand from this is a lot of people in the IT space, I'm not trying to stereotype, but it's a lot of mental taxation in the work, and some of them, like I also live in India, and it's a big IT hub, and a lot of them are quite insular in the sense that they don't express themselves about how they relate to colleagues, what are the issues and stuff like that. And they also have some people have problems communicating what they're feeling. What is your experience in the digital line? And I know you also have you're big on social media and publicity. And okay, there's 2 questions here. And how do you think it would help in the future of leadership? So Ellen, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, what are my technologies and the play? I mean, been in this industry for so long. Obviously, technology has its advantages and disadvantages as well. And to add on to what you guys are talking about, mental well-being, or I can't remember what you're going to talk about, the more positive word, other than trying to stigmatize that whole area. I see it's going to get worse because changes are happening faster. Both technological, competitiveness and whatever else are happening a lot faster. Even, taste in music, for example, right? It will change, That's the first thing that's going to affect us a lot more. Secondly, it's the potential threat to a lot of work that is manual and repetitive. So automation, and eventually because of AI. So people are going to feel a lot more pressure. And thirdly is the adverse negative effect of social media. Yeah, where things are so perfect in social media and people feel very inferior. So all these will add to the, unfortunately, I think will add to the what do you call it, deterioration of mental well-being. Yeah. So therefore, I while you say it's quite true, people who work in the tech space can be insular, and so it will affect them undoubtedly. Yeah. But it's not just them that we are seeing the effects. It's a lot of people, the young people, So the effect is 2 level. If you're in this tech space and you don't communicate a lot, it's definitely a problem. Yeah. And so therefore, I like what Jürgen talks about, the compassion. They need to be sensitive to being able to say, okay, this person may be facing some issue. So being a compassionate leader is very important. So in latching on to what somebody talked about is the need as a leader to build the trust, to create a safe space for tough conversation. I mean, leader can be at all level, whether you are in the work or at home or in church, whatever. Yeah, you need to create a safe space for tough conversation. Yeah. So those are my thoughts for now. It's going to affect everybody.
Right.
Yeah, but hopefully, like what you and also you're going to talk about is trying to prevent the people who are suffering to fall into depression. Once a person falls into depression, it's very tough to get them out. Yeah,
Right.
it may take years. Yeah, so yeah, those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
can I just add one thing? Maybe we can discuss
Yes. Yes. Sure.
So what is obvious now, and just also seeing the question here in the chat below, but I think one of the things I would love to hear Amar's and Jeff's feedback is also, how do we handle, this absolutely new and maybe unprepared responsibility to leaders? Yeah, so they are not psychologists. They don't went through trainings, mostly of them, to be the psychologist for all the employees. So this is, I think, also something which we may need to discuss, because we cannot shift the whole responsibility now from one side to the other. Yeah, so this is just a thought.
Yep.
Look,
Amar, would you like?
Just to
Yeah,
add
Aman,
on
would
to
you
what
like?
Jürgen is saying, I will quickly jump into here, because I find a lot of companies, when they promote somebody to become a manager, right? It's all mainly because they see, okay, this guy has been doing a good job at his work. But when you promote the person to manage people, it's an entirely different area altogether. And you are expecting this person to be able to lead, guide, and manage, and many times without sending them for any training at all, let alone being a listener or counselor. So that is a terrible formula to promote people. So we have to be very clear that when you want to promote people, please send them for some basic training in managing people. Please. Yeah. That's why we have so much problem. We have bad managers, bad leaders,
I think that's a really good point that you make there. Look, I'll respond to that. What Alan, you mentioned, also what Jürgen you talked about. The first point that you raised was about anonymity. Look, the reality is, no matter how much awareness we have, there is still some degree of stigma. There is still discrimination that someone faces for raising their hands and saying that, look, I need support and help, whether it's in the office space, in the community or family level that takes place. Having said that, there is, we see change, and I think that's what we're talking about, right? So look at it constructively, and that's why the employee assistance program, for example, what is that employee assistance program? EAP, or which in Malaysia many of mental health organizations, including Trivella, is offering now, allows that sort of one degree of separation in getting that support. Many employees would feel a lot of consternation, right? They would feel like, okay, if I'm going to seek help internally, what if someone knows about what issues I'm going through? What if someone talks about it? Will my promotion be affected? Whereas, when you actually reach out to the employee assistance program, which is also hired by the company, but it's outsourced in a way, you have that separation in the sense that you have the safe space. Having said that, I do work for another Singapore Malaysian-based startup, right? And I do some work for them in terms of reaching out to some it's micro chat-based coaching or support, right, that we provide. And many of them, when they reach out to us, the first thing they ask, even though they have been assured that many times, is that, will my employers know about my issues? So that concern remains there. And I think as mental health professionals, as business leaders, we all have a responsibility to assure our employees that if you can report on having a physical injury, there's no reason you can't report on having a mental health stressor. We don't need to know the details, but if you're seeking out help. So the anonymity is definitely something that gives a sense of safe space there. But the change, and some of us here know Dr. Yo Paley, who's also been one of the resource people for the Global Empowerment Summit, and she's been my trainer and also co-partner for the empowerment group, and she envisions a very different future, that in a future that an employee will not be victimized or discriminated, but in fact rewarded for raising their hand and saying that I need help, because that's really the future that we are talking about. So that's one point that I think I'll highlight. Second point, I think you also mentioned was about I think young the leaders, right? The pressure on leaders as well, that now we are putting the onus on leaders to be mental health friendly. They are not neither mental health counselors nor psychologists, psychiatrists. I think that's a good point. But you see, being a leader, CEO, and for that matter, even being a prime minister, you don't have to be an expert of everything. For example, I mean, look, in Malaysia, I think we all kind of grew up with Tun Mahathir as the prime minister, and we know that he had a very hands-on leadership, but he was a doctor. But at the same time, he had an understanding of economy, he had an understanding of technology, because, and not necessarily that he trained himself in all that, but he had experts who helped him build that knowledge, right? And we know after the financial crisis, for example, he was actually on a state visit in another country, and at that time, really, a top expert from one of the banking institutions was actually flown in to meet Tun Mahathir at that time to brief him there or the whole night there on what is really happening in the currency fluctuations. So I think, I mean, just to take that example there, that as a CEO, you don't necessarily need to be an expert on mental health, but I think being aware and the mental health literacy that you can have by having the kind of consultation that mental health experts can provide to you. So that investment has to take place. And this means that not only reactively, like we are doing with employee assistance programs, but also preventively when you actually design the work structure, design the work policies, how the whole systems operate within the organization. You need to have the input from a mental health professional that the processes and procedures are actually sensitive to emotional well-being. And that's where we also, I think, eventually are moving towards companies having a chief mental health officer, for example, and that's going to be a norm as we move forward. And and I think based on a recognition that human beings are not machines, and you're really talking about humans at the end of the day. And literally speaking, human resources is about people and culture and humans.
Yeah, yes. Human beings are not machines. That's so important. And I like the thing about having a mental health officer, because it kind of just, I mean, it makes it easier when the CEO or mental health CEO or something like that, because it makes it normal. It kind of normalizes the situation, because you have someone there who's representative of, you're okay to come and talk about this because this is pretty normal. And I'd like to say hi to Anjali, Josie, El Chan, Minakshi, and Peter Ong, who was here earlier. Welcome to this conversation. There's a lot to explore in this. And Jeff, your thoughts so far of what
Yes.
Alan, Yugen, and Aman have shared.
Yes, I'm trying
more
to
thoughts?
capture, starting with what Jürgen has say. You're gonna say, really, Jürgen, I was looking at materials for compassionate leadership, which I want to start next year. But I like the word compassionate and caring. I think that comes together very well. And I will steal your idea. Yeah, thank you for that. And really about the young people. Young people, and also Alan mentioned about engagement. Leaders have problem. The millennials and now the Z generation that's coming on force, they love engagement. And sometimes leaders are not having the skills to engage, so they try to avoid that. And that becomes a problem. Yeah, because they are technically strong, especially first-time managers, and then they are now overwhelmed with work, and suddenly they need to manage people. So they are not able to do that. And coming to compassion and care, I think it goes all the way up. Yeah, so we need to do something about that. And Arman brought a good issue about having a mental health officer. I was told by I did not check this fact, but I was told by one of the counselors, I think it's true, that in universities, Malaysian universities, that is, Arman may want to, confirm that. For every 1,000 students, they're supposed to have a full-time counselor, right? Is that correct? Yeah. So, but organization don't have that, right? How come? Yeah, only the bigger organization, they will have in-house counselor, but most of them don't even have in-house counselor. They will hire a counselor, right? And I also would like to take the point from Chan, who says that thought-provoking. He mentioned in the chat that wonder does ICF conduct a mental health test on coaches before putting them on the ground. Well, I think it's not about ICF conducting a mental health test, because ICF coaches are not trained to provide coaching to people with really, I would say, serious mental health issues, right? I know, Jagan, you don't like the word. I'm trying to get it right. Yeah. And, but I think one of the things that ICF coaches need to be trained, and not only ICF coaches, all of us, leaders as well, is how to identify, yeah, what is the area. In other words, I just attended, I told Arman that I just attended a 3-hour kind of a training, in modern health, yeah, they actually say they do a try people to the right level of care, right? I think that's, yeah. In other words, they have a well-being assessment, yeah, and you assess that, okay, you are in a healthy state. You just need digital program from Alan Fong, right? All this digital stuff they can go on without having an intervention by a coach. But if they are, measures from moderate to high stress, then we can look at, besides digital program, they need virtual coaching, right? And if they are in clinical need, of course, they would need therapy. Yeah. So how do we able to identify that? I think that's the one that we are lacking. And I think we need to be trained on that. I mean, that's what I say. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. So we need to be trained on that. Now, as it was pointed out earlier, we are not experts. Or in this case, the leaders are not experts. They don't need to be experts on the topic, but they need to engage experts. And that's, I think, where the investment comes in to help in this issue, in this addressing, not an issue, as I say, it's in addressing the need, which should be kind of normalized. And change takes time. As Yugen pointed out, it takes, in his place, it takes about 6 months for the first consultation. And that's 6 months that could be too late. Am I right, Yugen? In some extreme cases. And that's really sad. And we wish that change could be faster, but it takes its time. But as long as change starts and the ball keeps rolling, that's all we can hope for. Alan, you deal with publicity, you deal with social media. Do you think the leaders of the future could use social media or publicity to create better awareness amongst their employees to deal with this, to help support a company perhaps or a business?
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. But I just want to also add in a few words about leaders being a positive influencer in all these things. Recently, I mean, I've been working for the last 30 over years, and I've been probably not a very good manager in the past, although I thought I was. But over the years, I've learned to be, how to say, more vulnerable to my peers and to my team members. Yeah, because I find that, I mean, I've got nothing to lose, and I also want to show them the authentic part of me. To say, hey, I'm like this. There's no second copy of me. I'm not trying to pretend. I also have problems and issues. Right. So I think we need to send the message out to say it's okay to have problems. It's okay to have challenges. Nobody's perfect. And so this is very anti-social media, right? Because social media, everything is perfect. Even the photos, we can all look 10 years younger if given the right tools to edit. Yeah. So we have to portray, I won't say portray, we have to send the right signal to everybody around us to say, hey, it's okay to have problems. It's okay to not be perfect and struggle. That's part and parcel of life. Yeah. So as leaders, I believe when we engage our staff, I try not to hide things. I share my personal life as much as I can so that they know, hey, this guy is a normal guy. Yeah, so I think that will help others who are facing some confidence issue and challenges. They'll say, hey, it's okay. Yeah, so I think that's how we can help those around us. Yeah. So.
Thank you, Alan. And feeding on what Alan has shared about his own dealing with his situations, and to understand that it would be helpful to be more vulnerable in front of your employees to show them that it's okay not to be perfect, right? Aman, business leaders, I mean, what happens to the mental health of business leaders themselves? Because physician, heal thyself. If you yourself are under a lot of pressure, and how can you help those below you or those you're associating with? Would you care to
Look, I think
comment?
a really good point, and I think we'll connect that to what Alan said. With that, I think when you start sharing with your being honest with your own employees, we really talk about authentic leadership, and I think whether it's at a political level or whether we are looking at a business level, I think the world has moved forward where we are not looking anymore for like grand leaders necessarily, right? We are looking for really leaders like you and me who are who are also human. And I think that's like overall the evolution that has taken place. There was a certain time, the tiger economics when they came up, right? You're looking for Lee Kuan Yew, the two Mahathis, right? But now I think you're looking for a leader who speaks like you, talks like you, acts like you, and that's where the authenticity comes in. And with that, I think the servant leadership, right? That a leader, like going back to the human resource concept, that a leader is supposed to serve as well, right? So leader is not to lead or boss around. And with that comes really walking the talk or practicing what you preach. If you believe that your employees need support and help, so do you. And the reality is, whether you're a political leader, and I'll extend this a business leader, and I'll extend this to also political leaders, you are under stress. Managing an organization or managing a political party or electorate or constituency is not an easy thing to do. So I think acknowledging that it does come with stress. So there is a responsibility you have. Sometimes when we talk about children's mental health, right, we say that children's mental health is affected by not only their own mental health, but also that of their parents, right? Likewise, I would say the employee mental health is not only affected by their own mental health, but also the mental health of their employers or the management as a whole. So it's really important, particularly, I would say that not only the top level of the leadership in a business, but also the mid-level particularly, because at the top level, of course, it's important for policy making and all. But the mid-level, that's where you have the interaction with your line employees, and you need that sort of supervision, that feedback that needs to be given. And we all know that when you have to give a feedback in an organization, that feedback can be both positive and constructive and help someone, or it can also be very negative and very hostile and can actually undermine both the employee and the organization's efforts to be more innovative. So in that sense, I think it's important for mid-level and the top level of management to get mental health literacy training, but also support themselves. This means that it's not rocket science, but at the same time there is a science to all this, right? That realizing, for example, that how workplace and mental health and the mental health in the home are interrelated. Realizing how, right, that you can be more sensitive at the same time. In fact, being more sensitive to your employee has a higher chance of leading to a productive outcome than really telling them off or yelling at them or belittling them or ridiculing them, you see. So I think that technical knowledge, but on top of that, if there's stress they're going through, they should also be able to access the same mental health support, and whether it's to reach out to a counselor, a psychiatrist, or a psychologist, depending on the need. I would say that at the top of the ladder, it can also be quite lonely at times, and I think we need to recognize that, particularly at the leadership level, you do need that support, perhaps even more than many others.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it starts from the top. It cascades down, and because the leader, of course, has the resources and the ability to actually invest, as was said before. I'm using the same word again, in the company's resources towards mental health issues or emotional well-being issues. Yugen, would you like to also comment on this?
The session is too short, to be honest. All the thoughts we are triggered to each other now could lead for another 1 hour or more. There are several aspects, which came to my mind, but I try to keep it short. First of all, I don't know about the situation in Asia or in other countries. I can mainly speak for the statistics in Germany, for example. What we have observed here in Germany during the pandemic is not only that we have a huge increase, as I mentioned, for psychological counseling, yeah, but what we also saw is a significant increase in violence at home, yeah, and other things like that. So the situation that families all of a sudden, maybe in a very small piece of room, sitting together, working together, the children all around, led also to certain things which we thought it's not in our society existing anymore, but it is. Yeah, it's a challenge. And another point which I wanted to make when you hear about expectations into people and people management, one of my favorite topics I will not experience in my life, unfortunately. So it may need some more generations. But what I think is the basic thing, or is that our education system needs a dramatic change. Think of what we are doing at university nowadays. We believe if I learn by heart some mathematical formulas and I know the history of XYZ, I'm qualified for my future. But we do not really learn what is important in life at university, for example. So we learn about theoretical constructs and how important they are. But life is not. This is not life. Life is real situations, and the things we just talking about, what we believe are needed, for own development, personal development, and also becoming a leader. They don't learn at university. They are just jumping from an educational system into the real world, and the real world is different. And I'm working in a company with global company, more than 50,000 employees. We have an infrastructure which can be quite supportive for everyone. But think of all the small companies, the medium ones, which don't even have a physician at place, or the small entrepreneur people, the startup companies with 10 people, they're desperately looking for money and other things. So long story, I guess we need a dramatic change also in our educational system, how we build young people into the real life, and emotional well-being would be a significant part of this. Yeah. And also what I still miss, when you look at all the programs from Stanford, Harvard, Oxford, and all the famous things, when you look at their leadership programs, it's still very, very small. We talk about, what kind of leadership skills are needed today. What about mental health, emotional well-being aspects, how to deal with that. So I agree with Arman that normally, at a certain level, you have a supportive group around you, but that doesn't take away the responsibility and accountability in the end for what you are doing or what is your company doing. And last point is, I don't know whether Jeff, Alan, and Aman can confirm, but isn't it interesting that at least when you look at LinkedIn and other sources, that the topic of narcissistic people is also rising quite significantly? Maybe the awareness has changed, or that's a fact that these kind of people become more prominent now, and also that gives me at least an alarm signal that things have to be changed and addressed openly, because working for a narcissistic, toxic leader, what will happen? Either you follow and you be opportunistic, or you leave the company because it's just no longer possible to do so. Long story short, let me finish. I guess really we have a lot of things to do and change, and Alan probably could spend hours talking about, artificial intelligence and all these kind of things, and the impact, on our emotional well-being as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jürgen, for sharing that. And yes, I do also agree, and I think a lot of us do, that the education system needs to include such topics as emotional well-being, critical thinking, and the ability to actually receive negative feedback. Because in real life, it's not about all the positive, good things that you're going to get out there, but it's the ability to be resilient from young itself. To be able to see that things don't work out the way you think it would work. I mean, it happens in schools. We have issues like bullying and stuff like, which is unnatural, but it happens. But yes, the education system needs to take this into consideration so that there will be at least some awareness of what could happen out there. And I've noticed that among my friends' kids, a few of them I've taken up psychology, because my niece tells me that mental health issues has been spoken of even before COVID. It has been an issue with youngsters of her age. She's in the millennial group. And so I was a little bit surprised. But yes, it has been going on. And they are, as earlier was said, they are a little bit more conscious of that and trying to do. And that's why they actually express themselves that they need this to be part of any employment that they get in the future, part of support system in any company that they work for. And Jeff, you've been quiet for a while so far.
Alan want to say something. I let Alan say first. Yeah.
Yeah, Alan. Yeah. Yes, please go ahead.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, Sham, I just want to jump in here to talk about parenting. Yeah, because we can talk about the education system, the work environment. I think we need to remind ourselves that parents are also leaders. And I'm also guilty of that, because I come from a background whereby, I don't know about you guys, my parents, when they brought us up, all conversations are very transactional. They never asked me, Ellen, how do you feel? No such questions, It's all about, have you eaten? Do you have enough money? Do you have the shoes, the uniform? That's all. So therefore, even when I grew up, when I talk to my sisters, the conversation is very short, because we were not brought up to have conversations. So therefore, I suspect that this is one of the contributing factors to the problems that we have today. So now children grow up, they don't know, they will talk to other people if they have a problem. They won't talk to us. So that is part of leadership, and that we have to remind parents to have good conversation, meaningful conversation with your children. And that's a very good starting point. Yeah. So now I'm learning that at the later part of my life. I believe it's not too late. It's just that unfortunate, but so that is something that we can do ourselves.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ellen. Yes, that is so important. I think leadership it's all interconnected, right? It's a dynamo effect. Like whether it's parents, teachers, then
all our leaders, yeah. If you think about it,
all our leaders, and it starts with self-leadership, right? And how do you build the sense of self-leadership within, starting from when you're young? Of course, collaboration, collaborative leadership, the leadership of the future. And we are running out of time. I can go on and love to hear all of you.
Sham, Andrea just gave us 15 more minutes.
Thank you, Andrea.
It's getting very heated up. Okay, so Sham, I just want to make a little bit of comment. I think Jürgen has a lot of experience from Europe. I think that's great. Arman down south, probably of course you're Malaysia, and I think I think all across is the same. I mean, the millennials across the world wants the same thing. They want to engage, and leaders are not engaging. So they are just, even managing millennials, they have a big problem. And Jürgen talk about the small SMIs and all. And you're right. I mean, I'm just doing a program for 9 months, and the leader as a coach. And I see the leaders, the SMI leaders, they're struggling, to be a coach. they say that everything is urgent. How am I going to coach them? Everything is urgent. We need to collect money. We need to sell, Yeah. So already they're struggling. And what about millennial? And now you talk about, well-being, right? Emotional well-being. It's a big thing. But each of us can do our part. Yeah. And each of us, like what Jürgen talked about, I'd like to go into your webinar. I had about 15 minutes of that in the later part. That's very interesting what you talk about. I would like to add in, to say that it's not, from what Ellen has mentioned and Arman, it's not just about compassionate and caring. The third C would be courage. Compassionate, caring, and courage. The courage to be vulnerable. The courage to want to change. Yeah. So leaders need to do that. Yeah. So the fourth will be a change. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Jeff. Nice. The 3 C's, the courage to be, and the third one, the courage to be vulnerable. Yeah, so true. And as Jürgen, when you mentioned about during the pandemic, the issues that were at home, actually, it's kind of global. I'm from India, and similar issues of increasing mental health issues at home, and a lot of abuse. And I think in Asia, a lot of parts of Asia, this was likewise experienced. And the thing with bad things or challenges that happen is, after a while, you get numb to it and you forget. It's so easy for us to forget what we've learned in the past 3 years of how dire the way we've been actually working or performing has not helped humaneness or mankind in many ways, to put it in a nutshell. And how do we go about reminding people? Perhaps of course, awareness starts from what I've gathered from all of you. Awareness starts from the schools, awareness at colleges, awareness in when they go out to the world, awareness in corporates. It's not just the millennials. Jeff, I would like to point out that every one of us needs support, emotionally, mentally, and physically. And physically, sometimes it's there. It's taken for granted that you'll get physical support, from your company or workplace. But emotionally and mentally, I think this is where we need to really ramp up. And it's never too soon. Perhaps, as we said, sometimes they say, perhaps it's yesterday that we should have started this. And so, yeah, Aman. Last words. I'm going to throw it out to all of you because we have perhaps 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Last words, Aman, on this topic.
Look, I mean, thank you for that. Look, it's been such a rich discussion here. I just want to build on, we were talking about artificial intelligence, fourth industrial revolution, the disruption that will take place with that. So that's one aspect. And I think we need to recognize, right, the changes that's going to take place. It's going to affect the employees, right? I mean, and there will be employees amongst us. There will be members of the community who will also lose out in these changes. And I think we need to acknowledge this instead of this very rosy thing, oh, it's all technology, it's going to help everyone. So there would be what I would say divide, a digital divide. It's our responsibility to have an inclusive society as leaders, right? We also need to be responsible and look in the future. This does not mean we reject technology, we reject the automation, but we look at how we could perhaps look at our employees in a more humane way, help them retrain, build their capacity. And I think that's really important there. And I would like to propose here that if disruption is automation, why don't we make mental health also a disruption in the disruption sort of sense? Meaning that by being more, by creating emotionally sensitive and emotionally responsive workplaces, we can also create a disruption in a way that can create a much better workplace for the future. And that's really the challenge for us now, right? That how do we rise to that challenge? How do we, and bearing in mind that the separation or the division that we had between workplace and home is increasingly blurred as we work from home more often, right? We bring our work to home and home to work. So I think just recognizing that is also really important, and in a more holistic way, that how do we create a much more humane workplace? I think that's really the wake-up call for me that we take there. And another point I just want to also make is really about the safe space, right? That as a leaders, right, we have to practice the talk, practice what we preach and walk the talk. And I think creating a safe space, it doesn't really work like this, that, oh, I'm an emotionally responsive leader, but I'm not an emotionally responsive family member, right? So it really, I think, is that we have to, we have to internalize this within ourselves, that we have to validate. I think, Alan, what you mentioned is so correct. I get so many of my clients who come and they many of them from upper middle class backgrounds, well-to-do backgrounds, would say that, hey, I had everything when I grew up. And I would give this to Asian parents. Asian parents do a great job in food, clothing, and shelter. They do it not only up to 18, they do it till, maybe till mid ages, even till some cases till, for your whole life. But when it comes to the emotional validation, I think that's where we have a long way to go. And that extends also at the workplace, right? That whole mindset that, oh, you're my child, so you have to listen to me, you're my employee, so you have to follow me, I think is not something that's going to work anymore in the future. So we really need to rise to the challenge and see how we can actually be more self-aware about ourselves and make those changes both in our lives and also the organizations that we lead in terms of the workforce.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Aman. Yes, the
Sham,
change. I think.
Sham.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
want to
Jeff.
interrupt you
Please go
because
ahead.
we have until 10:45, so we have another 15 minutes. And Jogan and Arman is here, Alan is here. Let's tap on their knowledge and their expertise, okay? And we move to 10:45.
Yes, and if I'm correct, it's 10:31. Is it the same on
Yeah,
your?
correct.
Yeah.
Now it's
Okay.
10:31.
Okay. So
For
cool.
14 minutes to go.
So,
Yes.
so,
Aman, thank you. Yeah,
so,
thank you
so
for
Sham,
that.
maybe Sham,
Go
if
ahead.
you allow me to follow to Aman, so he gave me a few
Yes, please.
a
Yes,
few
please.
things.
Then please go ahead.
You know, also interesting, you know, when we talk about parents, what Ellen just brought up. So just for you, a statistical number, which will surprise you. I don't know about Malaysia or Australia or India, but what do you guess is the average age a young man is leaving his house from the parents in Germany at the moment? So when do young men leave house for the first time living independently alone in Germany? I tell you, it's 35. For me, it's a shocking number, 35
Wow.
to start a own life, which is really crazy. So
Now,
that
wow.
tells me that hotel mama or hotel papa, how I call it, seems to be quite a pleasant way, but tells me also that there seems to be a discrepancy sometimes between what they expect and what they actively do for that. So that's one of the topics I was just as a side note.
Yeah.
So it's not only the parents, but maybe the parents could have a better influence, because I can remember, guys, when I was 21, directly after my military service, I had only one desire: to leave home as soon as possible. And I did. And of course, after 4 years, I was bankrupt and had to go back. But I was welcomed at least, because I left in peace and could come back for a year or two. So that's one of the things. And you know, and the other thing, what I wanted just to raise, based on what Ammon also said, you know, when you look at the world economy at the moment, it looks we are going in a kind of a crisis. Yeah, we have, at least in Germany, you know, we have 10.5% inflation rate at the moment, which is really the highest ever we have in statistic, and what we see is a huge amount of laying off in companies now starting, and also some closures, you know, of in particular, you know, in the area of retailers. They close shops and people will lay it off. So what I just wanted to raise is, at the moment, you know, when we think about leadership skills and all these kind of things, we were in a very nice way of things going in the right direction, but now we have to really be very careful, and that the economic crisis is not throwing us back, you know, in the way we treat people, we treat mental health issues, because now financial aspects and survival of companies become such a dominant topic that, and then we are back to what you said, Sham, we forget easily what we did, and we adapt immediately to the next crisis. And when I see in Germany, you know, which managers were hired to help companies go through this economic crisis, guys, it's not about servant leadership. It's about numbers. It's nothing else but numbers. These are expert in crisis management, how to, you know, lay off people and give a turnaround and make something survival. And there, I think, is the challenge. You know, how can we keep the positive momentum Arman and others are doing, and not getting lost again in economical numbers? So that's my last thought.
I'll just take 10 seconds here. I know the two other speakers want to conclude. And I'm hoping, Jürgen, that the train shall meet there in terms of that sort of rational leadership and mental well-being will come together, that there is a strong business case for this. So the triple bottom line will be not only profits, but also the planet and people, right? So the people element of it, and realizing that for sustainable improvement in the workplace, for you to for the dollar values to make sense and to make profit, you need to invest in employees. Anyways, I'll just pass it on now. Thank you.
Yeah, Aman,
I want to ask a question for Jogan. Sorry. Normally, you mentioned about 35 years old, but before that, what was the expectation of the parents? Kids should leave home at what age?
No. We just saw it in a nice comment from, I hope I spell it correctly, from Yagantisvari. So she said, to Jürgen, we pamper our kids. I don't think, maybe there is a change. I don't know whether there is an expectation, at least I cannot tell you numbers for Germany, but I just observe and take note of numbers that children love to stay home as much significantly longer than maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think it also, the reality is, if my parents could afford a home of their own, a lot of people like my generation, perhaps even the generation younger than me, they can't really afford a home of their own. And it's becoming not just, of course, during the pandemic, a lot of youngsters had to go back and work from home, and they went back home, and the parents were happy. They may not have been so happy, the youngsters, but later they realized that was the best thing they had, the ability to be able to go home. And it's just blurring this segregation of work and home. And I think it's everywhere. I mean, it's not a small challenge that we need to handle. It's like every one of us should put in our own bit to work towards having a more emotionally well-being, seeing to the emotional well-being of our friends, our family members, or our colleagues at work. Because to be frank, most of us spend, especially if we are from a 9-to-5 job, we spend more time at the workplace, and sometimes more than just 9 to 5, than at home. So whatever we do at work, we tend to bring it back home. And if we've had a bad day at work, it affects our home life as well, and vice versa. So it's huge. It's truly huge. And I like that saying that says we can't change the whole world, but we can change the world of one person. So I think it's for all of us to get on that bandwagon, to try and do our bit to help aid this awareness and aid support to people around us. Your thoughts, Alan, perhaps. Alan, would you like to talk about that?
Is it what, the summary or what?
Yeah. I mean, do you
Okay.
feel that it's everybody who has to just jump on the bandwagon?
Yeah, definitely. That's why I said
Yeah.
we each one of us do our part to be a positive influence to the people around us. Yeah, both in our behavior and our action as well. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We need more people who are positive so that we can influence others positively as well. For the better, yeah.
Yeah. So it's all encompassing. Yes, Andrea, we've been having a great time.
I was having so much fun, guys. You made my this is the best panel until today in the 3 weeks of the summit. I really enjoyed it.
I want to say something. Jürgen mentioned about the 35 years old, and I have two. I have two millennials at home, 29 and 32.
I hope
the one
they're not
34.
listening in.
Yeah, the 34 years old is in Canada, the elders. She's not so lucky. These two are lucky. They stay with me and they are pampered, right? Anyway, the other thing that I want to mention is coming a comment from, Chan, who says that what about charismatic leadership? That's the fourth C. I would say that charismatic leader, it's about more. Okay, I mean, they look good. Everybody listens to them and look at them. But at one point, you'll be more like inward looking than outward looking, right? So to me, if they are compassionate and they have care and they're courageous, they are charismatic. That's it.
I think it's not just about, as you know, a lot of us have mentioned, it's not just charismatic leadership. What is charisma? I mean, nowadays it kind of has a negative connotation attached to it. As you said, it's kind of very superficial. And what we're looking at is an authentic and empathetic leadership model, perhaps, if I may be brave enough to say that. Aman, what do you think? Empathetic
Definitely,
leader?
I think redefining charisma, right? Charisma, and I think we discussed in our session that not these grandstanding leaders that we are looking at. I think whether at the business or the political sphere, we're looking at leaders who are just like us. Yes, they have charisma, and that charisma is the ability to connect, the ability to empathize, the ability to be more humane. I think that's what we are looking at.
Okay, and maybe just
absolutely.
Yeah, so maybe just one point again here. You know, what I like, even, you know, we have always these buzzwords, yeah, which have a fashion trend, yeah. So and it's not so long ago where we all talked about resilience as the most important thing we all need to survive on this planet and so on. I don't want to be sarcastic, but you know what I believe Corona showed us is it's really one of the number one topics we should take care. And what we just said, and Sham was talking about, that is we should, you know, the educational system and in the companies, the workplace and so on, we should help young people to build up resilience at a very early stage, because the stress we will go through will increase, because we are not talking only about economy and our business. We have a challenge with our planet, as Aman just mentioned. Also, we have a challenge with Corona that will stay with us probably forever. We just need to find a way to handle it more professionally and not just running away and lock down people. So finding ways to help younger people, but of course, as much as older ones, why should older ones not learn about being resilient? So last thing for my company, I mentioned that last year already with Andrea in a different panel, is we built up specific teams of older, experienced people with younger ones coming into the company and bringing them together deliberately in teams. And the benefit is amazing on both sides. The young people motivate the older colleagues significantly to give, still, you know, having fun in working, and the younger people learn so much about, you know, the corporate culture, what is really business all about, what they should take care of. So this is still something which we try to push. Luckily, I'm working in a family-owned business. We have a little, for sure, different culture than a stock-listed company, you know, which have to report quarterly better sales. It's a different story working in a family-owned business. But these are things we try to keep on a very high level. So I think that is also something, Sean, we should have a look at: resilience, and bring experienced people with young, enthusiastic people together.
Yeah, that definitely. Yeah, in fact, that was somewhat. Ellen, is it?
Can I just add something here? Yeah, so I wanted to summarize my perspective. Yeah, so I always believe that you know, when things change, fundamentals don't change. Fundamentals of making a profit, fundamentals of integrity, hard work, and all that don't change. Yeah, so approaches change. So therefore, taking on from that, what we talk about style of leadership, right? The old style of command and control no longer works. We move into what we talk about: authentic, compassionate, right? And we also have to recognize that what our young people are faced with today, and that is the hierarchy of needs to them is that two of their basic needs are met, and more often they take for granted. So therefore, they focus on the three upper levels, right? And I do not think that Maslow's hierarchy needs changed. It's still the same. Everybody still long for belonging. Everybody still wants self-esteem. Everybody still wants self-actualization. It's just that now, as if you are a leader, you need to recognize that there are two basic needs are taken care of. We just need to remind them to be appreciative and not to take for granted. And that's where we talk about building resilience, right? And therefore, how do we then keep them engaged at the three levels? You know, we talk about love, belonging, self-esteem, and all that. So I think that leaders need to recognize that. To me, the Maslow hierarchy hasn't changed at all. So once you recognize it, I think it's easier to engage.
Yeah, Ellen, principles, I totally agree with you. And principles haven't changed. Values haven't changed. The basics
haven't changed.
Yeah, it's about kindness, not just at home.
Kindness,
at the workplace.
Among others,
Kindness, at the workplace as well.
We talk
kindness,
about compassion.
Simple things like that.
And to show kindness, you probably need to be more engaging, more conversation. Yes. You cannot just say, hey, okay, Shama, give me 1 hour, I'll care for you now. No, it has to be built over time, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be a journey, yeah. So yeah.
Yep, it's a journey, definitely a journey. Yes.
Exciting conversation. Exciting conversation. I have to stop it now, but please continue and connect with each other, and please join each other's social media, follow each other, and continue the conversation. Yes. What I want to say is just to put the day into context, because imagine I started the day with Harry Dihan, and Harry Dihan is from Recover Now from Malaysia, mental health specialist for workplace. And we were talking about it. The biggest laugh that I had is her example that one of the companies had some problems with some employees having some mental health issues, and what the company did, they sent them fruit baskets. And this is such a beautiful comparison. Like, we started with fruit baskets sent to employees to heal them from mental health issues.
Oh my God, then there's a lag, and I'm missing the punchline.
And then that is the future, right? Where it's just so complex. There is so many things to deal with. It's like, how do we come from sending the fruit basket as a solution for mental health issues into dealing with Maslow's pyramid and saying, okay, appreciate this, because maybe you don't have it in the future. Maybe you take it as granted today, but maybe you will not have the food. Maybe you will not have the shelter, because it can happen because of the climate change, the planet, the people, and the profit. So there are so many things coming up. And thank you so much. I mean, it was a beautiful framing of this day. I think I have goosebumps after listening to you, after all this inspiration. If you listen to this later, please take it in slow. There is so much wisdom nuggets. There is so much value here in this conversation, and reach out to the people. And thank you, Sharm, for leading this conversation. That was amazing. Thank you so much,
Thank
guys.
you to all of you for sharing.
Thank you to all of you. It was fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you. And Armand,
take care and have a wonderful
time. All of you.
Everyone.
Thank you very much.
Stay connected.
Bye. And of course, Andrea, big thank you to you as well for getting us together. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. See you guys.
Bye-bye.